Following a strange electrical storm, the colonists of Outpost Green fall into a silent trance, inexplicably drawn to the planet's flora. Leo believes they are being absorbed by an unknown consciousness, and he and his sister Astrid must risk everything to sever this connection. Imagine a world of endless sand, under a sky the color of a dying sun. Hidden in the shadows of ancient rocks, pale beings pull the strings of life and death. And then, the unthinkable. Natives of this desolate planet, their eyes vacant, forced to hunt and kill their own. What dark secret binds them all? The austere structures of the colony, designated Outpost Green, stood distinctly against the alien landscape. Smooth domes and angular hab units, designed for survival, were now enveloped in an unsettling quietude following the unusual electromagnetic storm. This storm, as initial reports indicated, seemed to have a peculiar effect, primarily impacting those who were outside the shielded confines of the colony buildings. Life continued within the colony, but a subtle unease began to take root. Humanity's primary objective was survival and the expansion of Outpost Green into a thriving colony. The planet's native vegetation was characterized by rapid growth, a natural tendency to reclaim any cleared land. It was a constant challenge to maintain the colony's perimeter against the encroaching flora. However, after the intense electromagnetic storm that swept across the region, the planet's plant life took on a new, more aggressive nature. In the days following the unusual electromagnetic storm, many of the colonists moved with disorientation, their minds clouded and their bodies heavy. But not everyone succumbed entirely. A small pocket of individuals who were inside the hab units, though affected by the lingering malaise, retained enough clarity to recognize the growing danger. Astrid navigated the corridors, a familiar sensitivity to the planet now heightened, tinged with a growing disquiet. She noticed subtle changes in some of the other colonists. The colony's physician was often found staring intently at the hydroponic lettuce, her fingers gently tracing the veins on the leaves with an almost reverent touch. The robotics engineer, boisterous and full of energy, had become unusually quiet, often sitting motionless near the clusters of luminous moss in the communal areas, a soft, unfocused smile on his lips. Astrid found her brother, Leo, in his lab, poring over sensor readings that showed unusual activity outside the colony perimeter.
The readings from the external sensors are strange. The native vegetation seems to be exhibiting some kind of rapid growth and aggressive behavior. It's concentrated around the areas where the electromagnetic surge was strongest.
It's more than just outside, Leo. I think some people inside are feeling it too. That connection to the plants.
Stress, work overload, isolation. It's bound to affect people in different ways.
No, it's different. It's the same feeling I get. That sense of understanding. They're drawn to the plants. I feel it. And I've seen them. They're not just looking at the plants. They're connecting with them.
He pulled up security footage of the colony's exterior. The images showed the areas outside the shielded zone where the electromagnetic surge had been most intense. The native, blue-tinged vegetation was indeed growing at an alarming rate, with thick vines and tendrils spreading rapidly. There was no sign of the perimeter teams who had been conducting research outside the barrier when the surge hit. The subtle changes Astrid had noticed became more pronounced. Several colonists began spending increasing amounts of time near the indoor vegetation, their movements becoming slow and deliberate, their conversations hushed and often plant-centric. They spoke of the peace they felt near the growing things, a sense of belonging they hadn't experienced before. Leo, initially dismissive, started to pay closer attention after Astrid pointed out the synchronized way a group of colonists in the communal area were gently swaying as they stood near a large, leafy fern. It was an unsettling mimicry of the plant's movement.
The planet's influence is finding its way in. Maybe the shielding isn't perfect. Or maybe it's reaching them in a different way.
The unease within the colony grew. a silent tension building alongside the visible threat of the aggressive vegetation just beyond their protected walls. The normalcy they had initially clung to was beginning to fray, replaced by a creeping sense that Outpost Green was changing in ways they didn't fully understand. Life within the outpost was becoming increasingly fractured. While some colonists carried on with their duties, a growing number were drawn into a quiet devotion to the indoor plants. The hydroponic gardens, once purely functional, now felt like sacred spaces, where individuals would spend hours in silent contemplation, their faces serene, their connection to the flora palpable. Some went missing, walking outside and never returning. The humans started to eat less, begging for forgiveness, while others almost prayed when they ate the grown food, whispering unexplained maniacal words. Leo's investigation into the missing perimeter teams yielded grim results. The aggressive vegetation outside the shielded zone had effectively erased any trace of them, leaving behind only mangled equipment and a chilling testament to the planet's hostile reaction. The boundary of the colony's shielding was defined by the sudden cessation of the rampant plant growth. Leo's hypothesis was that the uninfected humans got attacked immediately, being trapped and then slowly ripped apart by the jungle's flora when outside the energetic barrier that surrounded the colony. The barrier slowed down the growth of vegetation, but it could not stop it. Colonists needed to daily cut off intruding vegetation around the barrier perimeter, but now the aggressive vegetation started to go deeper into the colony, trying to reclaim it. But his concern was now equally focused on the strange phenomenon occurring within their supposedly safe walls. He had begun running neurological scans on the colonists exhibiting the plant-like connection and found subtle but significant changes in their brainwave patterns, a heightened activity in areas associated with sensory perception and emotional connection.
It's not just stress, their minds. They're reacting to something.
The planet is reaching out, Leo. It wants us to understand its power, its connection to all life here. We can be whole again. You can become one of us.
You talk very weirdly. I am worried that the storm affected you as well. I will make this right, Astrid. We will fight back.
The divide within the colony deepened. The connected colonists, as they were becoming known, seemed increasingly detached from the everyday concerns of Outpost. They showed little interest in the dwindling external resources. Their focus was solely on the plants, tending to them with an almost religious fervor, their loyalty seemingly shifting towards the silent, growing life around them. One evening, Astrid witnessed a disturbing scene in the communal hydroponics bay. A normally pragmatic engineer was gently pruning a tomato vine, but instead of discarding the cuttings, he held them to his cheek, a look of profound peace on his face. When another colonist tried to intervene, Mark recoiled with unexpected aggression, his eyes flashing with an almost feral intensity. Leo had also noticed the shift. The connected colonists seemed to possess an almost intuitive understanding of the plant's needs, their actions perfectly synchronized with the growth cycles. It was as if they were becoming extensions of the planet's flora. The colony was now divided, the connected colonists welcoming the vegetation to their colony. The aggressive vegetation outside continued its relentless assault on the colony's perimeter, a constant visual reminder of the danger beyond their walls. The unaffected colonist could not keep up with the growth. Soon, the vegetation would start growing on the buildings, getting the equipment out of operation. But now, an internal threat was also emerging. The connected colonists, though seemingly peaceful, were becoming increasingly resistant to any attempts to draw them away from the plants. Their calm demeanor held an unsettling undercurrent, a sense of being part of something larger, something that transcended the human concerns of Outpost Green. One night, another colonist went missing from the connected group. A search party, comprised of the unaffected individuals, found no trace of her, only an unusually vibrant patch of the luminous moss where she had last been seen. Next day, Leo saw how one of his colleagues went outside the colony, going straight to the endless jungle outside. Leo got surprised when he saw what happened. The lianas moved aside, letting the human pass unhurt. Maybe they are still alive, living somewhere in symbiosis with this planet's nature. Leo must figure this out and get everything back to normal, but is it possible? Outpost Green, once a sanctuary, was now a place of growing division and fear. The aggressive alien flora clawed at the exterior walls, while within a silent transformation was taking hold. The connected colonists, lost in their verdant communion, moved like sleepwalkers, their human identities slowly being subsumed by the planet's silent embrace. Astrid and Leo, along with the remaining unaffected individuals, watched with growing horror as their community was being claimed, not by brute force, but by a subtle, irresistible connection to the alien life that surrounded them. They had nothing to eat. The connected defended the plants, threatening Leo if he tried to even enter the growth labs. They would soon starve to death if he didn't act. The central core of Outpost Green became the last bastion of the unaffected colonists. Leo, poring over his data, discovered that the energy pulses emanating from the connected colonists and the aggressive external flora shared a similar bioelectrical signature, resonating at a specific frequency. He theorized that disrupting this frequency might sever the connection.
It's a long shot, but if we can generate a counter frequency, it might shock them out of it at the expense of system overload. We will lose most of our equipment.
The risk was immense. They had limited power reserves, and any large-scale energy surge could destabilize the colony's life support. But with the connected colonists now actively hindering their efforts, their calm devotion a formidable obstacle. They were running out of time. Their plan was desperate: reroute power from the geothermal vents to a modified communications array that was used for information exchange with other colonies. The plan was to broadcast a targeted counter-frequency, and the connected colonists, sensing their disruption, would return to their former selves. The final confrontation was not a battle of violence, but a struggle against an unseen force. As Leo worked frantically at the control panel, the unaffected colonists formed a protective perimeter, their faces etched with fear and determination. The connected colonists advanced slowly, their hands reaching out towards the plants, their eyes vacant but filled with an unnatural calm. Leo initiated the sequence. A low, guttural groan emanated from the depths of the colony as power surged through the modified array. The lights flickered violently, and a high-pitched whine filled the air. The connected colonists recoiled, clutching their heads, their serene expressions replaced by confusion and pain. Some stumbled, their connection to the plants visibly fracturing. Outside, the aggressive vegetation around the colony perimeter thrashed violently, as if struck by an invisible force. The humming within Astrid's mind intensified, a discordant wave of energy washing over her. The counter-frequency seemed to be working, but the strain on the colony's power grid was immense. Alarms blared as systems began to fail. Slowly, hesitantly, some of the connected colonists began to stir, their eyes focusing, their expressions shifting from vacant serenity to confusion and disorientation. But the victory was fragile. The energy surge had taken its toll on the colony. Life support flickered precariously, and the aggressive vegetation outside showed no signs of abating. And within Astrid, the connection to the planet, though disrupted, remained, a faint, lingering echo. In the aftermath, Outpost Green was a shadow of its former self. Some of the connected colonists returned to normal, shaken and with fragmented memories. Others remained in a catatonic state, their minds seemingly lost in the verdant embrace. The aggressive vegetation outside stopped its relentless assault and returned to its previous natural growth rate. Astrid and Leo, weary but alive, looked out at the alien landscape. They had managed to pull some of their community back from the brink, but they knew their sanctuary was forever changed. The connection between humans and plants remained a mystery. How did the electromagnetic storm lead to this? The shielding of their colony was now deactivated after the energetic pulse that Leo created with the communication array. The colony would definitely be consumed by the jungle. Sooner or later. The only thing colonists could do is to adapt, accept the nature of this planet, and try to rescue the colonist that went up to the jungle. Leo had a long way ahead. The endless dunes of Xylos stretched under a sky the color of burnt orange. Jagged obsidian formations, like hollowed-out skulls, jutted from the sand, their interiors shrouded in deep shadow. A constant, low thrum vibrated through the ground, the collective movement of the skitterers. These insect-like creatures, some as small as rodents, others the size of small dogs, scurried across the sands, their many legs kicking up fine dust. Their movements were strangely coordinated, as if guided by a single, unseen will. Deep within the shadowed recesses of the rock formations lived the lurker. It was not a creature of the open sand, ill-adapted to the harsh sunlight that bleached the landscape. Instead, it was one of the parasitic forms that colonized habitable planets and consumed all living, and after that they moved to another planet and followed that pattern for hundreds of years until they died from old age. Pale and elongated, they preferred the cool darkness of the stone. From hidden fissures and deep crevices within the rocks, they extended thin, almost invisible tendrils that shimmered in the dim light that filtered into their subterranean layers. These strands pulsed with a faint energy, and through them, the lurkers exerted their silent control over the skitterers on the surface below. The lurkers were the hidden masters of Xylos. Huddled in the shadow of a towering rock, a group of the native people, the sand-dwellers, watched with hollow eyes. Their leathery skin was cracked from the dry heat, and their once bright markings were now faded. One of them, her body thin and frail, moved with a disturbing jerkiness. Her eyes were unfocused, as if looking at something far away. She carried a sharp piece of obsidian, her hand trembling, her movements dictated by an unseen force. She was a gatherer, the chosen one and the last one. Her target was another sand-dweller, even weaker than herself, who lay huddled against the cool rock on the other side of the canyon. Without hesitation, the gatherer lurched forward, the obsidian glinting in the harsh sunlight. A soft, choked sound escaped the lips of the sand-dweller as the gatherer carefully but decidedly sliced away a piece of flesh from the leg. The damage was not lethal. Both of them were used to this process, it wasn't new to them. Gatherer then turned, her vacant gaze fixed towards the shadowed rocks in the distance, the unseen homes of the lurker, and began his slow, stumbling journey, the raw offering held tightly in his grasp. The silver ship, Stardust Drifter, cut through the burnt orange sky, its landing near a cluster of crumbling structures a contrast to the natural formations of Xylos. Inside, Captain Eva Carter and her team surveyed the desolate landscape on their monitors, a sense of unease settling over them. Their mission: to investigate a long silent research probe. But the initial readings had been unsettling. As they disembarked onto the hot sand, the team was immediately struck by the oppressive silence, broken only by the skittering of the insect-like creatures moving with an unnerving synchronicity. Then they saw her, the gatherer, her thin frame moving with unnatural purpose, carrying the gruesome offering towards the shadowed rocks in the distance, the unseen homes of the lurkers. The team exchanged grim looks. This was far more than a simple investigation.
What are those things, Captain?
Lieutenant Marco asked, his gaze fixed on the scurrying creatures.
The skitterers, a complex social insect, but their movements, it's as if they're all controlled externally. But our mission is to locate the lurkers. Oh, I hate them so much. Worst life form of them all.
The space travelers followed the slowly walking gatherer. That didn't react to presence of the newcomers, probably because of the mind control of the lurker. The team, equipped with advanced weaponry and protective gear, approached the jagged rock formations. Following the faint energy signatures detected by their scanners, they located a narrow opening in the side of a massive rock, a dark maw leading into the unknown. With their weapons raised, they cautiously entered. The air inside was cool and damp, the only light filtering in from the entrance. Strange, bioluminescent fungi clung to the cave walls, casting an eerie green glow. Then they saw it, a lurker. It was even more unsettling up close than the logs described. Its pale, elongated body hung suspended from the cave ceiling by thin, almost invisible strands. Its large, pale eyes turned towards them, and a wave of intense mental pressure slammed into their minds, a cacophony of alien thoughts and commands. The bolt struck the lurker, and it convulsed violently before going limp, its body falling to the cave floor with a soft thud. Dr. Hansen quickly approaching the fallen creature with a bioscanner. Sergeant Jax carefully cut away a section of the lurker's head area. Anatomically, they didn't have any brain. Instead, they used their whole body to communicate and control others.
I'm going to try and access its neural pathways, see what we can learn.
Back at the Stardust Drifter, Dr. Hansen worked feverishly, connecting the tissue to her advanced neural scanner. Moments later, images and sensations flooded her mind. The history of the Pact, the lurkers' desperate need for sustenance, their ability to control the sand dwellers. She saw their cold, calculating logic, their view of the sand dwellers as hunters, and when the ecology collapsed, now the dweller are instead the last meat source. The memories revealed the slow, deliberate increase in lurkers' demand, the dwindling resources, and the lurkers' own growing desperation as their food source began to disappear. The lurkers have destroyed the whole ecosystem of this planet, all animals that ever lived there. Now, it was sand dwellers' turn to slowly kill themselves. They were the last organism in the ecological pyramid. Now, armed with the lurkers' memories, the rescue team understood the depth of the sand dwellers' suffering and the cold, calculating nature of their oppressors. Their resolve to help the natives solidified. They continued their mission, locating the hidden settlement and encountering Lyra, the young sand dweller, chosen as a gatherer. The neural disruptor severed the lurker's control, and Lyra awoke to the horrifying reality of her actions. Now, the rescue team faced a difficult moral dilemma. Lyra, while under the lurker's control, had undoubtedly committed crime. Could they simply release her? What if the lurkers reasserted their dominance? After all, the other settlements were controlled by other lurkers on this planet, and the Space Rangers will need to do the same procedure there as well, eliminating the lurkers. Lyra was a victim, forced to commit these acts. Newcomers were convinced of that. Jailing her would be punishing her for the lurkers' cruelty. Dr. Hansen suggested a compromise.
We can't leave her here, vulnerable to the lurkers, until we eradicate all of those parasites. But outright imprisonment feels wrong. Perhaps we can contain her in a way that ensures her safety and the safety of any other rescued sand dwellers. Also, I think that some of the dwellers will want to avenge for what she did to them. In order to avoid that, we should lock her.
Lyra, understanding their words through the translator, looked at them with a mixture of hope and resignation.
I don't want to hurt anyone anymore,
she said softly. The Stardust Drifter prepared for its ascent. They had managed to locate a small group of other sand dwellers hiding in the ruins of an ancient settlement. Captain Eva Carter, after consulting with her team and the rescued sand dwellers, made a decision. Using a portable containment field generator, they created a durable, transparent enclosure, large enough for Lyra to move comfortably within. They placed it in the center of the ruined settlement, on a cracked stone platform that seemed to have once been a place of significance for the sand dwellers. Lyra stepped into the enclosure, a look of weary acceptance on her face. The containment field would prevent the lurkers from reasserting control and would also ensure she couldn't harm anyone, and nobody could harm her. In a final act of compassion, Captain Eva Carter left a supply of nutrient paste and a simple feeding mechanism near Lyra's enclosure. She then approached the crippled sand dwellers, communicating through gestures and the translator.
She is no longer controlled. She needs care.
A silent understanding passed between them. These forgotten sand dwellers, bearing the physical scars of the lurkers' exploitation, began to slowly, carefully, bring small portions of the nutrient paste to Lyra's enclosure, feeding her through a small opening in the containment field. The crippled dwellers knew that they are alive thanks to her, even though crippled for the rest of their lives. Their limbs withered, some lost their eyes, and parts of flesh were gone. But now they will serve her until the day she dies in her prison. If they do not follow the instruction and don't feed Lyra, they will be convicted according to the Intergalactic Codex and executed immediately, the newcomers warned. The Stardust Drifter lifted off after a long hunt for the lurkers around the planet, leaving the desolate world of Xylos behind. In the center of the ruined sand-dweller settlement, within her transparent prison, sat Lyra, just like gatherers in other settlements, a reminder of the brutal control exerted by the lurkers. And around her, moving with agonizing slowness, the crippled, sightless remnants of the sand-dweller race tended to her needs, a poignant symbol of survival and unexpected compassion in the face of unimaginable horror. The only food source dwellers have is the skitterers, if they can catch them, of course. The memory of the cold, alien logic gleaned from the fallen lurkers served as a chilling reminder of the darkness that had gripped this world.